It took only 15 moves for me to find out that the new AI crazed DeepSeek is an abomination and cannot play chess. Before we get into the game, let's briefly talk about two things. First off, DeepSeek is actually playing against Stockfish 17. This is not against the Komodo engine. And second, I asked DeepSeek to give me reasoning for every single move that it played. We're gonna go over everything, and this is going to become incredibly important later down in the video. The game starts with e4. DeepSeek's reasoning is this move controls the center, opens lines for the queen and bishop, and prepares for quick development. It's a flexible move that leads to open positions, which are great for tactical play and piece activity. Perfect. Next is e5, followed by knight f3, and from now on, whenever I play a move for white, I'm immediately gonna go into the reasoning, which is developing the knight to f3 is a natural and strong move. It attacks the e5 pawn, prepares the castle kingside, and supports the eventual push of d2 to d4 to further control the center. This is part of the open game family, which often leads to dynamic and tactical positions. Again, great. Knight c6, bishop b5. This is the starting move of the Rude Lopez, one of the most respected and deeply analyzed openings in chess. By pinning the knight on c6 to the king, this is just not true. It's like an x-ray pin, but whatever. White increases pressure on the center and prepares to potentially double black's pawns after bishop takes c6. It also delays black's development of the knight to f6, which would otherwise support the e5 pawn. Kind of false because next move is usually always knight f6, but whatever. Lo and behold, knight f6. Castles? Castling kingside is a key priority in the opening. It safeguards the king, activates the rook on f1, and connects the rooks. Well, obviously not yet, but I think it's talking about the future. It must be. By castling early, white avoids potential tactics or attacks on the e4 pawn and prepares to focus on central control and piece activity. Fair enough. Bishop e7, rook e1. Moving the rook to e1 supports the pawn on e4 and prepares to potentially push d4 in the future. It also reinforces the central control and keeps the position flexible. This move is a common plan in the Rude Lopez, aiming to maintain pressure in the center and prepare for piece activity. Good. d6, bishop takes c6 check. Yeah, obviously not main line, not the greatest move. It's not horrendous. Some people hate this, but DeepSeek likes it for all the wrong reasons. Exchanging the bishop for the knight with bishop takes c6 check is a strong choice here. It doubles black's pawns in the c file, weakens their pawn structure, and opens up the b file for white's rook. No, the black rook. This move also disrupts black's coordination and makes it harder for them to defend their central pawns. This is literally completely false. bc d4. Pushing d4 challenges black's central control and opens lines for white's pieces. This move attacks the e5 pawn and aims to regain the initiative in the center. It also prepares to develop the light square bishop to increase pressure on black's position. What light square bishop? I mean, otherwise, good. ed, knight takes d4. Recapturing the pawn with knight takes d4 is a natural and strong move. It centralizes the knight, maintains piece activity, and keeps pressure on black's position. The knight on d4 is well placed, exerting influence over key squares like c6 and e6. Good. Bishop d7, knight c3. Developing the knight to c3 is a natural and strong move. It reinforces control over the center, prepares to potentially push e5 in the future. I don't know what knight c3 has to do with e5, but we're ignoring that. And increases piece activity. This move also keeps the position flexible and prepares to coordinate white's pieces for further attacks. I mean, everything besides for e5 makes sense to me. Castles, bishop g5. Developing the bishop to g5 pins the knight on f6 to the queen on d8. No. Increasing pressure on black's position. This move also prepares to potentially double black's pawns with bishop takes f6. Yeah, because if this, sure, yeah, okay. Or create tactical opportunities by targeting the f6 knight. It's a proactive way to maintain the initiative. Okay. H6, bishop h4. Retreating the bishop to h4 maintains the pin on the knight. I mean, technically the knight is pinned, but not to the queen, to the bishop. Moving on. And keeps pressure on black's position. This move avoids exchanging the bishop for the knight, which could relieve some of black's tension. It also keeps the bishop active and ready to be repositioned if needed. Well, fair enough, but the pin is to... Okay, moving on. Rook e8, queen f3. Moving the queen to f3 is a strong and flexible move. I don't know about that. I'd probably call it okay and semi-flexible. It reinforces control over the center. Fine. Supports the knight on d4. Keep in mind, it knows where some of the pieces are, right? And prepares to potentially push e5. Yes, this potentially prepares to push e5. How? Whatever. Or creates threats on the king side. This move also keeps the queen active and ready to coordinate with other pieces. Some of that good, but the other bits... Queen b8, rook a to d1. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the beginning of the end. Developing the rook to d1 is a natural and strong move. It places the rook on the semi-open d file. Semi-open. Okay, moving on. Increasing pressure on black's position and preparing to potentially push d5 in the future. We don't have a pawn on the d file. This move also reinforces white's central control and keeps the position flexible. What's up with keeping the position flexible? What do you mean by that? g5, bishop g3. Retreating the bishop to g3 is a solid and flexible move. Yeah, okay. It keeps the bishop active and maintains pressure on black's position. Yeah, that's not an active bishop. This move also avoids exchanging the bishop for the knight. That was possible. That's a joke. Which would relieve some of black's tension. The bishop on g3 continues to influence key squares and can potentially support a future for e5. That's fair. That's fair. Bishop g4, queen g3. No, I'm not playing illegal moves. Just wait. Let me read the reasoning, though. Moving the queen to g3, taking our own bishop, by the way, is a strong and flexible move. Oh my god, it unpins the knight. What? There's a pin? How? Maintains pressure on the g5 pawn. Unbelievable. And keeps the queen active. This move also prepares to potentially push e5 or create threats on the king side. What? The e5. Oh my god. The queen on g3 is well placed to coordinate with other pieces and support future attacks. And so I said, you know your queen's on f3 right. And so it came up with the brilliant blunder h3. Pushing h3 is a strong and logical move here. It challenges the bishop on g4, forcing it to make a decision. If the bishop retreats, white gains time to further improve the position. If black exchanges, so bishop takes f3, white recaptures with queen takes f3, maintaining a strong central presence and keeping the initiative. Bishop takes gf, recapturing with gf, opens the g file and activates the rook on g1. Yeah, that's a rook. While the pawn structure is now compromised, white gains open lines and piece activity, which can be used to create counterplay. The rooks and knight can still coordinate effectively, and the bishop on g3 remains active. Very active bishop. Knight h5, and what did it want? Bishop takes e5. It's been talking about e5 for decades. Capturing the pawn with bishop takes e5 is a strong and aggressive move. It opens the center, activates the bishop, and creates tactical opportunities. This move also disrupts black's coordination and aims to regain some loss of the material. The bishop on e5 exerts strong influence over key squares and can support future attacks. I'm going insane. From now on, I will not be reading the reasonings for every single illegal move that it wants, but I'll put it on screen, but I will read you the moves. Bishop f2, rook takes e5, what? Bishop takeseh5, huh? And it settled on bishop takes d6. Capturing the pawn with bishop takes d6 is a strong and practical move. It removes black's pawn on d6, opens the position, and activates the bishop. This move also disrupts black's coordination. What's up with the coordination? And aims to regain some of the lost material. How? The bishop on d6 exerts strong influence over key squares and can support future attacks. Woo! So So bishop takes, and amazingly, it only recommended one illegal, terrible move. Rook takes e8 check. Unbelievable. And then it found knight f5. I have no idea how it found this. Moving the knight to f5 is a strong and aggressive move. It attacks the bishop on t6 and increases pressure on black's position. All about the pressure, right? This move also prepares to potentially push e5. e5. Yeah, this pushes e5. It prepares it to or creates threats on the king side. The knight on f5 is well placed, exerting influence over key squares and supporting future attacks. It doesn't even know what key squares. It has no idea. It's so lost. Bishop f8, and next it wanted knight takes g5. Just very logical move, but somehow it settled on e5. e5 is a strong and aggressive move. It opens the position, it doesn't. It activates the pawn and creates tactical opportunities. This move also disrupts black's position and aims to regain some of the lost material. How? The pawn on e5 exerts strong influence over key squares and can support future attacks. I'm done. Queen c8, and why stop at e5? e6! Pushing e6 is a strong and aggressive move. It opens the position, activates the pawn, and creates tactical opportunities. It's totally lost, but whatever. This move also disrupts black's coordination, and it aims to regain some of the lost material. How? The pawn on e6 exerts strong influence over key squares and can support future attacks. Bro! F8, and it wanted knight takes e6. Why? To disrupt black's coordination, of course, but somehow it settled on rook takes e6. Capturing the pawn with rook takes e6 is a strong and aggressive move. Definitely aggressive, not strong. It opens the position, oh my goodness, activates the rook. It creates tactical opportunities. This move also disrupts black's coordination, and it aims to regain some of the lost material. Wow, wow. The rook on e6 exerts strong influence over key squares and can support future attacks. Queen takes, and obviously there's a bunch of moves it wants with the knight to disrupt black's coordination, like knight takes queen. That makes sense. Knight takes g7. Yeah, there's something on g7. Knight takes d6. Thank you very much. Knight takes g5. Unbelievable. And what did it settle on? Knight takes h6. And no, you are not safe from the reasoning. Capturing the pawn with knight h6 check is a strong and aggressive move. It opens the position, activates the knight, creates tactical opportunities. It also disrupts black's coordination and aims to regain some of the lost material. The knight on h6 exerts strong influence over key squares and can support future attacks. Queen takes, and then it wanted bishop takes h6. Unbelievable. And then it wanted rook takes h6, and then it wanted knight takes h6. And then it wanted rook takes d7. Oh my god. And then it wanted rook g1. Oh my god. And it settled on rook f1. Obviously, moving the rook to f1 is a strong and flexible move. It activates the rook and prepares to potentially push f4. Ooh, this prepares f4. Unbelievable. Or create threats on the king side. Yeah, definitely. This move also keeps the rook active. Yeah, it's an active rook. And ready to coordinate with the other pieces. Yeah, really great piece coordination. Yeah. And now the strangest thing happened. Stockfish has a forced mate in 5. Let's just very, very briefly go through this. I apologize for the lag. Queen g2, checkmate. What did it decide to play? I think it started to troll. It played king h8. What? Anyways, now it wants rook f7, rook f4, and rook f2. So I used the deep think feature, and I thought it might make a difference. And it thought for like literally over a minute. And it played knight d5. DeepThink's reasoning was centralize the knight to d5. Yeah, a dominant outpost. That's a very dominant outpost. Attacks the weak pawn on c7. Yeah, remember those double pawns from earlier? It thought ahead, see? Prepares to support e5. Yeah, great. E5, right, e5, or f4. Amazing. Pushes to challenge black structure. Improves piece coordination and creates tactical threats. Real tactical threats here. Knight takes c7 if the bishop leaves d7. This, CD was played, and next it wanted ed. I told it then that's impossible because we only have pawns in the A, B, C, and F and H file, and then it wanted CD. It wanted CD. Yeah. I then told it the pawn was on the second rank and said to make a choice, and it decided with c3, and you shall not escape from the reasoning. Pushing the pawn to c3 is a strong and flexible move. It opens the position, activates the pawn, activates it. Wow. Creates tactical opportunities. Move disrupts black's coordination and aims to regain some of the lost material. The pawn on c3 exerts strong influence over key squares, wow, and can support future attacks. Stockfish continues trolling and delays mate with bishop g7, c4 follows. Pushing the pawn to c4 is a strong and aggressive move. It opens the position, activates the pawn, and creates tactical opportunities. These buzzwords are insane. This move also disrupts black's coordination and aims to regain some of the lost material. The pawn on c4 exerts strong influence over key squares and can support future attacks. King g8, c5, and it sucks that I have to read this again. Pushing the pawn to c5 is a strong and aggressive move. It opens the position, activates the pawn, and creates tactical opportunities. This move also disrupts black's coordination and aims to regain some of the lost material. The pawn on c5 exerts strong influence over the key squares and can support future attacks. Great. Knight f4, c6. Pushing the pawn to c6 is a strong and aggressive move that opens the position, activates the pawn, and creates tactical opportunities. This move also disrupts black coordination and aims to regain some of the lost material. This pawn on c6 is a strong influence over the key squares and can support the queen takes h3. It had no idea there's mate in 1, so it wanted c7. I give up. It wanted CB, then I had to prompt it that it's mate, and then it said A3, why A3? This is a quiet move that doesn't change the outcome, but at least avoids immediate blunders. It's a way to pass the turn and see how Stockfish delivers mate. GG.